Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, I'm here today with a retro look at Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Quest. So Dragon Quest is, along with Dragon Strike, which we've looked at here on the Dungeon Dive, was kind of another way TSR was trying to compete with HeroQuest, trying to get their D&D game on the toy shelves, on the game shelves in toy stores like Toys R Us and KB Toys. They are trying to make Dungeons and Dragons into a board game. So Dragon Strike leans way more onto the side of HeroQuest and a board game, whereas Dragon Quest is much more of an RPG. This is much more of an introduction into the world of full-fledged Dungeons and Dragons. It even uses the THACO system for combat, but it actually explains it in a much, I think, better way than the manuals did for D&D. So overall, this is a pretty interesting game. I think as an introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, it's pretty good. It's a very simple introduction, but it does offer, I think, just enough that it would whet somebody's appetite and it could get them interested in pursuing something further. Now, they also had a black box Dungeons and Dragons intro set. I think that was probably around the same time, maybe even a little later. I had that, but I recently traded it away. That was even more of a introduction into Dungeons and Dragons. So it's kind of like you had this spectrum. You had Dragon Strike way over here on the board game side. You had Dragon Quest kind of in the middle. And then you had the black box introduction. That was pretty much kind of like the new red box intro into D&D. But the best thing about Dragon Quest, I think, is all of the art that is used. Now, none of the art is original, at least I don't think it is. It's all from, TSR's huge library of amazing fantasy art. I mean, one of the best libraries of fantasy art probably ever put together. And this game really does stand in stark contrast to the WotC Dungeons and Dragons Adventure Games series, which uses none of this art. And I said, in my review of one of those games, even though I like those games a lot, the lack of art is it's just so weird, because you have all of this great art that TSR owns the rights to, and none of that is used in these games, and a lot of it is used here. Granted, it's not original, it's not made for this game, but still, as an introduction, if you were a young kid and you had Dragon Quest and you saw this art, I think it would really interest you and it would pique your imagination and you would want to dive further into these worlds. So the game comes with a game board, and the game board is set up a lot like HeroQuest, where you just kind of have these random rooms and halls with no doors, no features, nothing, just the spaces and walls. And then the adventure that you play dictates where you're going to set up your doors. And the doors are going to be, in this game, are going to be little plastic or cardboard standees. And this game comes with quite a few pages of different cardboard standees. You have all of your heroes, and then you have a ton of monsters. And this is not fully punched. I bought this mainly for archival reasons, to make a video of for the channel, as part of my attempt to kind of make a video museum for dungeon crawl games. So you do get quite a few pages of cutouts, of standees, I mean. And then what you would do is, as the DM, this game is competitive, not competitive, it is a game master, it is a dungeon master role that is encouraged to make the game fun, to fudge dice rolls, to balance on the fly. So it's not competitive, it is a RPG in that sense. And depending on the adventure, the dungeon master will set up the doors in various ways to make pathways for the adventurers, for the heroes to go on. And like Hero Quest, some rooms won't be used in certain adventures, so the heroes really do have to use their imagination, because this generic looking castle thing will be used for caverns, for forests, for anything that the adventure calls for. Unfortunately, Dragon Quest does not come with any furniture or dungeon pieces, dungeon design, anything that you might need, like a fountain or a bookshelf or a treasure chest. I don't even think it comes with any treasure chests. So that is kind of a disappointment, and one way that Hero Quest, of course, is much better because of all of the furniture that it comes with. The rule book is pretty good. It's nicely put together, I think, and I think it does present a pretty good introduction into role-playing games and telling the players how to play, telling the GM what his or her role is, how it's not adversarial. You do get a really nice turn sequence here. So the cover of the book does kind of double as your game master screen, your dungeon master screen. You get a couple charts here. It goes over explaining the different dice, because maybe some people, this was their first introduction to polyhedral dice. And the dice that it comes with are actually, I think, really high quality. They're hefty. They've got really nice bold print on them. So very high quality dice. But you get a chart that tells you how the game is played in certain steps. Very easy. As far as like RPGs and a box type systems games, to me this reads very easily, and it expertly explains the kind of game that you're playing. And I think that's super important, because for some people this was maybe their first time ever playing a game like this. But the best part of the book, of course, is all of the awesome fantasy art that is in here. And just tons of classics. People who were into Dungeons and Dragons and Dragon Magazine and Forgotten Realms books, they had all seen this art before. But for a lot of people, this was like a window into this fantastic world. And I think as that, this is a good game. There are some problems with it, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But you have some spell, it goes through magic, it goes through alignment, the different classes. So of course this is, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2E. And so you're going to have, fighters, rogues, wizards, and clerics. And then you also have your racial classes, elves, dwarves, and halflings. Kind of go, you get a nice overview of what the role of each class is in the party, and kind of encourages players to pick the class or the role that appeals to them as people, because you are going to be playing this hero. It's a different kind of game. A little bit about how the turn works. Combat, moving into combat. There are stat checks, so there are non-combat things that the Dungeon Master is encouraged to do. Just everything that you would think would be in a role-playing game, this rulebook does cover in only a few pages. And you also get a character sheet to make your own characters. Now, there are no character creation rules here, which is one place that I think it really falters. I think this game would have been awesome if it just came with one additional book on, one, how to create your own characters, and two, how to create your own adventures. I think a third book would have made this a much more complete package, and I think it would have been a better introduction to role-playing. So the character sheet, what you would probably do is just, if you wanted, you could transfer the information from the hero cards on to that sheet. But here are the hero cards with their art. The cards are pretty nice. They have a nice glossy finish on one side. They are just kind of like flimsy cardboard. So, you know, you got one side that's really nice and one side that's okay. But the information is presented and you get a nice piece of art. And then the heroes range from, you have your cleric, 2 good clerics, a neutral dwarf, a neutral rogue, a good fighter, a neutral warrior, a good elf, a neutral wizard, and a neutral halfling. Now the cards is really where I think this game excels, and especially in terms of art, because as a introduction to a game world, to a game system, some players may not know what certain things look like. And so all of the enemy cards have a picture of what the monster or enemy looks like. And that is super cool because, you know, what is a bugbear? Well, the bugbear kind of looks like a goblin or something. And then you have their stats on the back. Now your fighting is basically your THAC0. You're to hit armor class 0. And the way combat works in this game is, if this halfling was attacking this bugbear, his fighting score is 19. The bugbear's armor class is 5. You would subtract 5 from 19, giving you a 14, and that's the to hit value. So you'd have to roll a d20, and on a 14 or higher, a 1. Excellent. The halfling would hit the bugbear. So that's basically THAC0, but it just words it a little bit differently. And I think it words it better than what was in the manual, because THAC0 is always, I always liked the idea of it, but it was always hard to grasp, especially as a young kid. Kobolds, orcs, gnolls, hobgoblins, dire wolves, mummies, giant bats, owl bears. Yeah, I mean, you get a ton of enemies. So this game has, as far as like a dungeon crawl in a single box, you get a ton of variety in enemies. Way more than any modern game. I mean, look at this. That's crazy. That's like all of Descent's expansions all in one box. You know, that is really cool. That's one place where this game just offers up a ton of options and a ton of ability for the dungeon master to create fun adventures. Then you also get a deck of spells. Now the art on the spells is just a single picture. Nothing different there, but you do get 2 decks, basically, one for clerics and one for wizards. And then the elf class can use some of the, I believe, wizard spells. And in this game, like Hero Quest, the cleric and the wizard choose their spells first, and then the elf gets to choose what's left. And I believe you get the number of spells that is equal to your level plus your intelligence modifier for the wizard and your charisma or your wisdom modifier for the cleric. And there's a good variety. All the spells that you would hope to see in a D&D game. All right, and then you get a deck of kind of like mundane items here, weapons, armor, that kind of thing. And nice, you get some great art for the things that maybe you don't know what they are. How chainmail armor looks, a crossbow, darts, a sling, a satchel, longbow, a spear. So all kinds of like mundane weapons, and then on the back you get your stats and a little bit about them. Some of the things that you can do with those to remind the players of certain things they can do. And you know, shields will subtract 1 from your armor class because a lower armor class is better. Armor will lower your armor class. Weapons usually just add to just give you your damage, you know, and your range. So And then you get a deck of, what do they call these here? There's a couple different decks. There's like a magical items deck and a, where is the card? I can't remember. You have like a magic, oh there, you have spells, traps, special items, equipment, and treasure. I believe this is the treasure. Yeah, this is the treasure deck. This guy's rocking his treasure chest like a boombox there. So these are the treasures that, excuse me, that the heroes would find on their adventure. Again, a picture for each. I mean, even a lot of modern RPG or dungeon crawls don't have, you know, great, nice pieces of art like this on all of the treasure cards. And then, of course, it'll tell you what it does and how it helps you and how the players can use that. And then you have the special items here. So these would be probably more like quest items and different. So, oh no, these are like for things that you can find. So pile of debris, strange writing, swirling lights, ancient shrine, fountains, dead zone, large gong, things that you would find in the dungeon. And then you get a small deck of traps here. Deadfall, poison gas, dart, streaming, stream of acid, explosion, alarm. Again, like the spells, all of these have the same piece of art, but then on the back, you have the rules that the Dungeon Master would use to spring those traps. Little close-up of some of the monster standees here. So the art is really tiny on these, and it looks kind of like clip art, a lot of it. Some of the art looks, you know, it looks a lot like the old art from the Steve Jackson cardboard standee books, if you guys have ever seen those. You also get, so every version of the game came with the plastic minis, and then there was like a special edition that came with metal minis. But as somebody pointed out in a review that I read today online, I've never seen a non-special edition of this game. So as far as I know, every edition of this game came with the Ral Partha metal miniature equivalents of these little plastic minis, and they are quite a bit better, of course. The plastic minis are pretty low quality, and the metal minis are pretty, you know, typical Ral Partha design. So you have minis for the heroes, paper standees for the monsters. Where this game, I think, really stumbles is in the adventure book. So the adventure, this game only comes with 3 quests. That's pretty, that's really low. That this game should come, I mean, it should have at least 6 quests. So you have a Call to Glory, the Eisenman Blade, and Jaws of Flame. And then you have a blank space for the Dungeon Master to create their own. The adventures that it comes with are pretty interesting. And I think they do a good job of introducing new Dungeon Masters into how to use a module. Because I don't know if you guys were like me, but when I bought my first module for Dungeons and Dragons, I don't remember what it was. Actually, it was probably a Gamma World module. I had no idea how I was supposed to run it. You know, I was expecting it to be a point A to point B kind of adventure that I would lead the heroes on, kind of like I was reading them a Choose Your Own Adventure. You know, come to find out, of course, after wrapping my head around it and talking to people, it's more of, hey, here's a setting, and here are some things in that setting to help you run an adventure in that setting. So I always thought that it would be, I always wanted a better introduction into how to use D&D modules, RPG modules, when I was younger. And I think this does a pretty good job at that, at least for dungeon crawl modules, because you get your map, how you're going to set up your doors and how the heroes are going to move through, and then you get your descriptions for the rooms and the kinds of traps and things that you're going to find in here. So they're pretty simple, but I've read through this and they seem pretty interesting. I've never run any of these. I did not have this game growing up. But again, just looking through at the art, the page quality is pretty nice. Kind of cheap magazine quality. But I really think that the game should have come with more adventures, at least 6, probably double. And like I said, another book that details character creation and how to create your own adventures as a dungeon master. Then you also got some advertisements in here, some Oral Partha, some heroes from Forgotten Realms and Ravenloft. And you've got some Dragonlance stuff, Dark Sun, Battle System, Dungeons and Dragons, the dungeon game, basic heroes set. Nice little picture there of some minis. And then a little 1992 TSR catalog. Now this is Dragon Quest game. And if you look here, the board is quite a bit different. And I actually prefer the board here that's used in the advertisement. It's not quite as like pastel. I don't know why it's all these like blues and purples and orange. I don't know. It's like weird colors here. And this looks a lot more like just your browns and reds and deeper, darker colors. And the shape of the board is quite a bit different. It looks a little, I don't know. I kind of like the way that looks more. I wish they would have done that. And then there's the black box that I was mentioning, the Epic Adventures with Wizards, Dragons, and Magic. This is the new Easy to Master Dungeons and Dragons. The Tainted Sword book. That expansion for the Easy to Master game. And that thing is super expensive now. And just goes through lots of books and modules and that kind of thing. Player's handbooks. So there's the box, Dungeon Quest game, an introduction to adventure games, real adventures for real heroes. And then on the back, we see some people playing it. The world of Dungeon Quest game is full of evil dragons, mysterious dungeons, horrible monsters, fatal traps, and valuable treasure. You and up to 5 of your friends can roleplay fierce warriors. Yes, yes, yes. Dragon Quest game components. Got your minis down here. And yeah, pretty neat. I think it's a good introduction. One thing I did notice is that the people here, the kids on the back playing, if you take a look at, I think it's this old version of the classic dungeon, you've got the same boy and girl here, and then a different third friend. So I always like to imagine that, like, of course, the brother and sister here, they were probably super into the occult. And they would invite a friend over to play these satanic games. And then at the end of the game, they would, of course, sacrifice their friend to the Dark Lord. And so here, you know, they couldn't get the same guy, so they had to get a different person there. It's interesting, like, yeah, the mullet, the undercut, the bowl cut, the bow. Yeah, definitely 90s. The kid with the gold chain necklace. So yeah, but that is TSR's Dungeon and Dragons Dragon Quest. Introductory role-playing game / board game / kind of counterpart to Dragon Strike, you know, with TSR trying to compete a little bit with HeroQuest to get their games on the toy shelves. So not really a review, I just kind of wanted to go over the game and show everybody what this game comes with and what it's all about. So all right guys, well, I hope you enjoyed that, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.